All he did was order a luckin, but the barista reacted like it was the end of the world. The cop was about to draw his weapon, and even a tank outside aimed right at him. Sensing something was very wrong, the guy quickly changed his order to a regular coffee. The barista finally relaxed, and the tank quietly turned its barrel away. As a disposable NPC couldn't even choose his own coffee. In this so-called open-world game, only premium players in sunglasses could do whatever they pleased. When the cops came after them, they could just whip out a rocket launcher and blast their way through. But NPCs were stuck in the same boring routine, day after day. Wake up, say good morning to your goldfish, then pick out a shirt from a closet full of identical ones, and head to work at the bank. Whenever a player came in to rob the place, they'd immediately unbuckle their belts, then lie face down on the floor, looking perfectly content, chatting about where to grab dinner later. But one evening on his way home, he suddenly spotted a girl humming a tune. The moment they crossed paths, time itself seemed to freeze, watching her walk away through an explosion, like it was nothing. A feeling he'd never known before blossomed inside him. For the first time ever, he broke from his routine, and chased after her to say hello. But the second he opened his mouth, luckily NPCs can respawn indefinitely, but something inside him had already started to change. When a robber blasted through the bank counter again, he suddenly felt like none of this mattered anymore. And when he looked up, there she was again, the girl from his dreams. His co-worker told him to give it up, and stop fantasizing about the VIPs in sunglasses, but that actually gave Guy an idea. What if he just took the robber's sunglasses? The player behind the screen was stunned, and scrambled to fight back. Everyone assumed NPCs were supposed to just take it. Guy wanted to take control of his own fate. With his self-awareness now fully awakened, he actually took the shot. In the struggle, everyone was stunned, but he bolted out of the bank without looking back. He put on the sunglasses, and saw a world he'd never seen before. The whole city was covered in neon indicators, with jets and artillery scattered everywhere. He found a health pack nearby, and it instantly healed the wounds on his face. Guy felt incredible, like he'd never truly been alive before this moment. Just then a player got taken out, and dropped a pile of gold coins. Guy happily scooped them up, and suddenly had 6 months' salary in his bank account. He withdrew every last cent, and bought the sneakers he'd always wanted. But just as he set out to find the girl, the game company had already noticed something was off. The footage of Guy eliminating a player made the programmers think a hacker had broken in, so they suited up in their favorite skins, and jumped into the game to deal with Guy. Keys dressed up as an angry cop, and Mauser went as a pink bunny. But when they confronted Guy with their accusations, he just stared at them completely clueless. They assumed Guy had stolen a skin, but he couldn't understand a word they were saying. It wasn't until they both opened fire that he realized this was no joke. He ducked low to dodge the flying glass, and suddenly noticed his brand new sneakers. One tap of his hands, and he rocketed straight into the air. He clung to a cable for dear life, staring down at the dizzying drop below. But the programmers were having fun now, and started reshaping the buildings on the fly, like gods controlling everything in their world. They were closing in on Guy, so he dashed across a suspension bridge, grabbing a bunch of loot along the way. But when he tried to jump again, Guy plummeted instantly. Luckily he had the gear he'd just picked up. He bounced all over the streets, and finally managed to crawl out. They smugly celebrated their victory, not realizing NPCs can respawn endlessly. Meanwhile in the real world, Keys the programmer was living an NPC-like life of his own. Fresh out of college, he and Millie created a game, but their work was bought out for cheap by a big corporation, which straight up copied their engine, and turned it into the worldwide hit Free City. Millie had been furious about it for years, demanding to know why Keys would go work for the company that ripped them off. She even asked Keys to sneak into the game with her, to steal proof of the company's theft. Keys valued their friendship, but he needed the paycheck, so he said no. With no other option, Millie decided to go in alone. But the moment she teleported to the core base, Guy appeared right behind her. Guy said he'd been looking for Millie everywhere, but their conversation instantly drew enemy fire. Millie switched weapons and blasted the floor above, but the stealth mission was already blown. She had no choice but to open a portal and bail. Guy copied her move, following right on her heels. Looking completely starstruck, asked Millie to team up with him. Millie just tapped her glasses, and her level popped up above her head. Then she looked at Guy, who had a sad little number 1 floating above his. Millie told him to go level up somewhere else, or come back when he hit level 100. But leveling up meant robbing NPCs for their resources, and Guy was way too kind-hearted for that. So he came up with a brilliant plan. He started doing good deeds in the game instead. Those paying players who terrorized everyone naturally became his first targets. Every day he rescued, bullied low-level players and protected NPC property. Not only did he shatter the game's leveling record, he also gained a massive fanbase. His good deeds even made the news, making him Free City's greatest hero. Millie reached out to Keys, asking him to help her sneak into the base. He could only buy her 5 minutes, but that was all Millie needed. But the moment she found the evidence, the alarm went off. Guards swarmed in from every direction, surrounding her with weapons drawn. Just in the nick of time, Guy roared in on a motorcycle. With one slick slide, he took out the guards in seconds. Then he tossed his helmet aside, and busted out some dance moves. A squad of ninjas dropped from the ceiling, but they were no match for Millie's smooth combat skills. Guy was supposed to be the hero saving the day, but he couldn't help gawking at her like a lovesick puppy. It wasn't until a guard swung at him that he snapped out of it and fought back with a steering wheel. He hopped back on his Ducati, ready to get Millie out of there. Millie did an elegant backflip and landed perfectly on the bike behind him. The two worked together seamlessly, fighting their way out and crashing through a window. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Then Millie realized a critical problem. They grabbed onto a paraglider and escaped. Guy had really impressed Millie this time. He seized the moment and asked her on a date. He even got her favorite bubblegum ice cream. That same oddball flavor gave Millie a strange sense of deja vu. They swung on the swings together, talking about everything, from childhood memories to life dreams, and when the moment felt right, they couldn't help but kiss. But watching these two get closer so fast, Keynes felt a pang of jealousy. He tried to figure out who Guy was in real life, only to discover that Guy was just a string of code he'd written years ago. All that exponentially growing data was a mirror of his own personality and preferences. Eves rushed to tell Millie that the one she was falling for was just a line of code, but Millie absolutely refused to believe that her first kiss had been with an NPC. Then she remembered there's no kissing feature in the game, and she had no choice but to face reality when Keyes hit her with even worse news. The company was about to launch Free City 20. Once it went live, all the data would be wiped clean. They had just 48 hours before the upgrade. They had to steal the evidence before then. Millie raced to find Guy and brought him to a hidden bar. On the screen, footage played of NPCs living the same exact life on repeat day after day. Millie told him the whole world was just a game, and he was just another NPC in it. He looked at her in disbelief, but the next second, he saw on the screen that his dreams, his feelings of love, were all pre-programmed into the system. He walked out of the bar like a ghost, ignoring Millie's pleas to stop. He'd always felt like something was missing in his life. It wasn't until Millie showed up that the void was finally filled. Gunfire erupted all around him, but he didn't hear any of it. Even a punch out of nowhere couldn't break through his numbness. He ran to the shoreline alone, desperate to test what Millie had told him, and when he slowly reached out his hand, he hit the invisible edge of the entire world. Shattered. He stood in the middle of the road screaming that everything was a lie. The world might be fake, but the pain was real. He told his co-worker Buddy the truth, but Buddy couldn't care less. Even if the whole world was an illusion, that didn't change what they felt in the moment. Even the smallest sting of heartbreak was proof that he'd truly been alive. Inspired by Buddy's words, Guy decided to help Millie steal the evidence. He expected a big fight, but it turned out the guard was his biggest fan. In the real world, the guard was a game streamer who wasn't about to pass up a selfie with a legend. He pulled up the evidence right away and handed it over to Guy without a second thought. He even sent them off with a goofy dance, taking the entertainment value to the max. Guy rushed to deliver the evidence to Millie, saving her just in time, but suddenly the evidence vanished. Millie froze in place as if time had stopped. Entire world hit pause. Everyone stood completely still. Pixelated glitches flickered everywhere, and every player vanished in an instant. It turned out that after Guy went viral, he'd built up an enormous online following. Fans treated him like an icon and started boycotting the Free City update. With profits tanking, the boss ordered Mauser to reboot the servers. Players went absolutely ballistic. Millie was devastated. The second the servers came back online, she logged in immediately, but Guy had been reset to factory settings. He had absolutely no memory of who Millie was. Fortunately, Keyes called to explain that a server reboot wouldn't affect the original programming. All it would take was the right trigger to wake Guy up again. When he'd first created that character, he'd programmed Millie as Guy's dream girl, and sure enough, the moment they'd met, his self-awareness had started growing uncontrollably. Guy, who should have felt nothing, had suddenly felt what it meant to be alive. The one who started it had to finish it. Millie knew exactly what to do. She burst into the bank, grabbed Guy and dragged him outside. She pulled him into an empty alley, and used her secret weapon. His memories came flooding back, swirling together into a kaleidoscope of images. In the air, Guy didn't just remember Millie, he also remembered where he was originally built. Turns out his apartment had been hiding the original code's reflection. All along, when the boss plagiarized the code, he only copied the surface, and forgot to delete the reflections baked into the engine. The original build was beyond the sea's edge, and the game engine wouldn't let anyone cross the ocean. Just when Millie was at a loss, Guy suddenly had a bold idea. Using his fame, he gathered every single NPC together. Everyone had their own dreams, but the system kept them locked in place. Only by making that first real choice could they finally break free from a life controlled by the system. Inspired by Guy's words, everyone banded together. The next day, when players logged in, the bank park was completely empty. Streets were deserted. Every NPC had mysteriously vanished. Players were freaking out. The boss sensed a crisis brewing. He rushed back to the office and ordered Mauser to take out those two troublemakers. None of the NPCs were following orders anymore. They were all partying at a coffee shop. The boss lost it completely and ordered everything to be destroyed. Skyscrapers began crumbling. The ground shattered beneath their feet. The whole world was closing in on them, about to crush them into nothing. But Keys came through in the clutch, carving a path for them out of thin air. Guy barely made it out alive, and finally reached the death beach. But on the other side the boss had already caught Keys. Keys flipped him a friendly middle finger, and made his choice. Debris morphed into a dragon, forming a massive bridge across the sea. The boss was desperate now. He actually deleted every player's account. Millie vanished into nothing, and Guy was completely on his own. But the moment Keys was fired, he secretly went live to the entire internet. Every player was glued to their screen, waiting for Guy to turn things around. But to stop him, the boss unleashed his personally crafted ultimate weapon. Guy didn't stand a chance against this beast, and was punted dozens of meters through the air. Buddy rushed in to help but was wiped out instantly. A devastating combo left Guy completely defenseless. The boss gave the command to activate the beast's finishing move.
Get up!
Mom, he's coming in with a death blow! What the shit? That was dumb.
Guy put away his fists and pulled out a weapon from behind his back. A beam of light slowly hummed to life. It was a Jedi lightsaber. The brute was tough, but Guy still had one more trick up his. Guy opened a portal and walked away from the fight in style, but the brute came back for more and was about to crush Guy's chest. At the last second, Guy caught his glasses. While browsing through his inventory, he suddenly had an even better idea. Instead of beating this puppet called Dude, why not wake him up? Instead he put the glasses on Dude's face, and sure enough Dude stopped cold. A whole new world he'd never seen before had him completely mesmerized. But the boss was out of options now, so he smashed the servers with his own hands. The entire world started dissolving around them. Buddy was caught in its path. Buddy disintegrated in an instant, but his words gave Guy the strength he needed. That security guard right there was a goddamn hero. Emotions raging inside him, Guy sprinted toward the edge of the sea. The world crumbled away behind him, but he leaped anyway, and with the whole world watching, he landed safely on the other side. This island built from dreams and passion. The proof that the boss had stolen and plagiarized their work. He was arrested, and a brand new game was born from the ashes. Millie appeared at Guy's side once more, but Guy told her to go back to the real world. He loved Millie deeply, but that love was just code in his programming. And in the real world, someone had been quietly in love with her all along. Millie stepped away from her computer and rushed to find Keys. Even though a whole street stood between them, they never felt closer. And back in the game world, Guy found himself a new friend. But looking at this stranger, he still couldn't help missing Buddy. The two embraced tightly, celebrating Buddy's respawn. There was no more bank in this world. They'd never be co-workers again. But the beautiful thing was, they were no longer shackled by anything. The moment they unbuckled their belts, they finally claimed a life of true freedom.